Hi paper crafters, today we're going to make a super cute Halloween treat. So we're going to start by scoring our cardstock and our designer series paper. So the measurements you can find on my blog, and we are going to score using the Simply Scored tool. Now this is a tool that I use all the time. And it comes with these great little markers that if you had the same measurements all the time that you wanted to mark, you just put these in place and then it'll make it easy for you. And it comes also with a burnisher that has a bigger tip and a smaller tip. And I use these interchangeably. Sometimes I think I like to use the small one, but there is a tendency with the small one that you could press a little bit too hard. So I'm just going to pull this in. Now you have your measurements are on my blog, so head on over there at Design with Jo to pick them up, and you'll also be able to see the alternatives. I'm going to show them to you at the end, but they'll be over on my blog too. Okay, so this piece of basic black cardstock is 2 inches here, and we are going to score along the top edge, and we're going to score it in 3 places. We're going to score it at 1 inch, and you're going to score it at 3 7/8, which seems like a long way over here, and then 4 5/8, which is right here. So this is really easy to see where these measurements are. So only 3 score lines there. And we're also going to use a piece of our Petunia Pop Designer Series paper. And this comes as part of the 24-26 in color, which is 6 by 6. And there are 5 different colors here. We have our Pretty in Pink, and we have Peach Pie, we have Shy Shamrock, there's our Petunia, and then we also have Summer Splash. And on the back of these, you can see the alternates. And so you get 40 sheets included in the entire package. So I have found that it's really difficult to see the score lines on this designer series paper. So I'm going to score it for you onto some basic white, and then I have one of the Petunia Pops already cut out and ready to go. So let me score it so that you can see easily where all the marks are. So this is the first one is at 5/8, and the second one is at 1 1/4. And then we go over to 3 5/8. So you'll notice that I'm scoring it twice just to make sure that it has really got a good score line there. I'm not pressing super hard. Then you're going to turn it 90 degrees and you're going to score it at 5/8. And that's all there is to it. So now we're going to fold these up using our bone folder. What I find when I've scored, you've pressed into the paper, so I fold away from my score lines. So then you're just going to fold and you're just going to crisp those up with your bone folder. Now you don't want to use too much force on your black because it might turn it shiny. So there's the first part. Now the second one, I do find that it's easier for me to cut before I fold. So what you're going to do is you're going to cut off this last little square here. This one's cut right off. And then we're going to make little sort of wedges here on this bottom one, and we're just going to cut up to that score line. Just every one of those, we're going to make a little wedge right around that score line so that we have a little triangle in there. Just makes it easier when we are going to put the box together. So now what we're going to do is fold up on those score lines. So again, I'm going to fold away from my score line that I made. I'm going to use my bone folder right at the same time. And then I'm going to fold the other way as well. So just make sure that you have nice crisp lines because it's going to make it really much easier for you when you are gluing this together. Okay, so this is what it's going to look like when you're done. And we have this one here as well. So now I'm going to move to my designer series paper to put this together. Now for this one, it's actually the reverse over here. Okay, so you can see that it's exactly the same piece right here. And I'm going to now put this together. So we're going to have all of these fold into the middle and everything is going to fold over. So then what you're going to have is just a little box by the time we're done. So to do this, all I do is put a little bit of glue right here. I'm going to use my liquid glue and just put a little bit right on the edge. And this is just in that first 5/8 of an inch. And then I'm going to fold this over and I'm going to bring my other side over to meet it. That is the easiest way for putting together one of these little boxes. Give it just a little bit of time to set up. Now where you have met that, that's going to be in the back. So we don't want to see that. And so what we want to do is we want to pull that towards us, and we're going to fold in our flaps, put just a little bit of glue on those flaps. And then I'm also going to put a little bit of glue just on the back piece. And that's because I want to have the front so that it doesn't have any meeting lines. So this one's pretty good because it met up almost exactly right, but this way I have a nice finish all the way around the front of my box. So then what we're going to do is we're going to put a little bit of glue right on the bottom of the box and on the back of the box. And the back of the box is where you have that seam. Now, this is the back of our piece of black. So the piece that has the fold at the top, and we are going to position our little box, try and get it sort of in the center, but right up against that score line. Okay, so the score line is right here. So I've placed it almost right on the score line. And then I'm just going to fold over, and you can do it this way too if you want. Just going to fold that over and let that set up as well. Okay, so we've got our little box, and it's great because you'll be able to see the design from the side as well. So now let's do some decorating. We are going to be using the Playful Ghosts, and this is a super cute little stamp set. It has 3 little words, sets of words that are easy, small, and it has these little ghosts. And I want to show you how I do the coloring on the ghosts. And we're going to color with this little guy here. Now, if you're where you can find these, because they're not in a catalog, this is on the online exclusives. So when you go to the Stampin' Up! Site, to the store and to my store, you can find these if you put in Playful Ghosts or if you just look under the online exclusives. So we're going to stamp this little fella onto a piece of thick basic white using our Memento stamp. And you just stamp that straight down and up. We are going to color that with a few of our Stampin' Blends. So I have a selection of our colors. I have Highland Heather, Petunia Pop, Smoky Slate, and I have our color lifter. And how I colored this guy is I colored his cape both with the Highland Heather and with the Petunia Pop. And so usually what I do is I go in and I color with my darkest color first, and I'm using my bullet tip. And the reason why is because this is a fairly small image, and so I don't want to go outside the lines. We are going to need to cut this out, fussy cut it, because it is, there are no dies for this stamp set. It's a standalone stamp set. And I don't mind fussy cutting at all. And this guy is actually pretty easy to cut. So I go around the outside with the dark, and then I come in with the light, and I'm going to use the brush tip. I'm going to use a gentle touch, and I'm just going to flick in from that color. And when I flick in, and I've just sort of started doing this, when I flick in, I have a tendency to be just lighter in my touch, and I don't put down quite as much color. Now, when you are using this tip though, it's really hard to get into these small little areas so that you don't go over the black lines. So if that's a problem for you, just go back and use the bullet tip for that area. And then what will happen is this will dry. It'll dry a little bit lighter than it is. And remember, we're using Highland Heather here. And I'm also going to put Highland Heather here. I'm going to put it everywhere actually. And then we're going to come in and we're going to put our Petunia Pop over top. So we're going to get a little bit darker kind of color than we would if we were just doing Petunia Pop by itself. That's because I want him to be a little bit darker. So now we're going to come in with the Petunia Pop, and I'm going to use the bullet tip again up here, and I'm just going to get you can see already that it's got a lot more pink to it, and we'll do that along the bottom as well. We don't have to do the whole bottom. And then I'm also going to do the same thing using that tip. So just flick in. And we're going to go right over top of all of that Highland Heather. Okay, So now you've got nice shading around there. Let's do his head. We are going to do dark smoky slate on the top of his ears and down the side and in the little point there. And then we're going to come in with our smoky slate in the same way. And you'll notice that I'm not really coloring any particular direction because it should come out okay in the wash because they will dry without these lines. Okay, so now I want to show you something as well because on the ghost, we wanted just to have a hint of gray. So I'm taking my light smoky slate. I'm going to go on the inside of the ghost in just a couple different places. And then I'm going to use my color lifter. And I'm going to take the color lifter on the bullet tip. I'm just going to pull out that gray a little bit. And it is going to make that so it doesn't have a line. It's just going to create a nice sort of wavy edge. Just going to go from a dark color over into a light color. And you can get where you have just a little bit of shading. So that's our fella. And I have one already cut out here. And we are going to do a couple more things, and we are going to use some words out of that same stamp set. So we have the boo, and I'm going to do that in the Petunia Pop. I'm going to put it here because we're going to use a die. And we are going to use the Spotlight on Nature dies. And here I want a circle. I want a larger circle like this that's going to go here on our little treat. And then I want the small one to go around the boo. So I've already cut this out of a piece of Petunia Pop, and I'm just going to cut out our boo, and I'll be right back. So there's our boo, and I'm just going to stamp a couple of our bats on the background here using my Memento Black. I'm just going to, I'm not exactly sure where I want these, but let's just put 2 there. Okay, so now the trick to this is that we do want to have this circle be the closure for the top of the box. So what I need to do is I'm going to glue this down, but I have to leave the top without any glue on it. So I'm going to go about halfway down, put down lots of glue, and I'm going to go about, oh, I don't know, half an inch, not half an inch, maybe about 3/8 of an inch down. And it will extend on both sides of, it's just a little bit wider than the black, which is perfect. We're going to put dimensionals on the back of our little guy, and he's going to go right over top here. Now I think that he should be floating, and I don't know if I'm going to miss our little bat, so that's okay. So he's going to float like he's leaning forward just a little bit. Then I'm going to put my boo down here underneath the bat. And again, I don't want to put it everywhere because I want it's going to extend a little bit off to the right. It's going to tuck in there. And now we want to add just a couple little dots, and I've pulled in the adhesive backed Pearl Trio, and we're going to go for these pink ones, I think. They're sort of a different kind of color, but I sort of like how they work here on this. I was just about to put it on that black, but I don't want to because it's going to fit in it like this. So I'm going to put it, actually I'm going to put it up here, I think. Yes, I'm going to put it there. And I'll put one more maybe right here by his face. There we go. Now let's pop in a treat. Now I made the box this size so that it'll fit this size of little chocolate bar fairly well. So it'll fit the Coffee Crisp, the Smarties, it'll fit the Kit Kat. But what I wanted to put in there were 2 arrows because they're a little bit smaller. So there's 2 arrows that'll fit in there perfectly. And then we are going to just close that top, trying not to get the top of our arrow showing. But there we have our little treat holder. Now let me show you a couple more that I made. So I made this guy here, the Trick or Treat. It's a large one, and I used different designer series paper on this one. It's from the Full of Life 6x6. And I did make our top just a little bit longer. This one I found didn't sit in there really, really well. So there's the second one. Here's the very first one that I made with the other little ghost. And then I have another one with a granny apple green background. And this paper is using the Bright and Beautiful. So there's all kinds of different things that you can make with these. I quite like these little guys. I think they're super cute. So I hope you make a few of those. Remember, the measurements are on my blog at designwithjo.ca. And if you like this project, please give me a thumbs up and hit subscribe so that you don't miss any other new videos that come out. And head on over to my site at www.designwithjo.ca and get yourself signed up for a free gift when you join my email. Thanks very much. Have a great paper crafting day. Bye-bye.